In a world where the odds are stacked against you from birth, can a man defy his fate? The strange case of Robert Asafo Williams. Did he ever have a chance? Did he ever have a chance? From the very start, the odds were stacked against Robert Asafo Williams. He was born into a West Philadelphia housing project built on toxic land and marked by the city's infamous red lines. This policy deliberately shut its residents out of the American dream, denying them homeownership, business opportunities, and higher education, which, in turn, practically sealed the grim future of its inhabitants, including Asafo. Instability was made worse by bureaucracy. Because of a rule from the Department of Public Welfare that said no adult man could live in the home if the family was getting welfare, Robert's father couldn't be there. This harsh rule, meant to help, instead tore families apart, breaking the nuclear family dynamic. Under this huge pressure, now solely responsible for Robert and his two younger siblings, his mother was isolated and overwhelmed. Tragically, she turned to alcohol as a desperate way to cope and escape her reality. With no stable home, Robert was bounced around from one relative's house to another. This constant upheaval made a normal childhood impossible, robbing him of stability and safety. He dropped out of public school when he was only in 5th grade. And as his mother's addiction got worse, making her unable to provide even basic parental care, Robert, at only 11 years old, found himself drawn into the harsh street life. This wasn't an act of rebellion, but a raw, desperate effort for pure survival in a world that had already let him down. For Robert, childhood quickly gave way to survival. He went in and out of some of Pennsylvania's toughest youth camps, places that felt more like battlegrounds than rehab centers. Instead of guidance, he got a harsh education in survival, where the strong picked on the weak, and trust was a burden. His supposed crimes? Petty theft, breaking and entering, small acts that led him into a system designed to break, not build. Each time he walked through those doors, the outside world seemed further away, and hope faded a little more. The cycle of release and re-entry became a revolving door, each spin eroding his self-worth and belief in a different future. By his teenage years, Robert was already living behind bars, sometimes physically, always mentally. The streets he called home were full of temptations and dangers, drug deals on every corner, bars and liquor stores on every block, violence lurking in the shadows. For young black men like Robert, the rules were different, the chances slimmer. The system seemed to have already decided his fate, locking him in and offering few legitimate ways out. It was a pre-written script he felt powerless to escape. Violence became a part of his story. In his own neighborhood, Robert was shot not once but 3 times, at 17, again at 18, and another time at 19. Each bullet was a brutal lesson in mortality. Some of those fragments are still with him, silent reminders of a world that never felt safe. At 19, Robert's life took another devastating turn. He was arrested for the murder of a local drug dealer, a crime that would sentence him to life in prison with no chance of parole. In an instant, his future was sealed. When Robert entered the adult prison system, officials called him mentally deficient, with an IQ between 70 and 75. This crucial detail was apparently missed during his formative years in the juvenile system. It's a number that brings up tough questions. Did he ever really have a chance? Or was he always set up to fail? Did Robert ever truly have a fair shot at life? Was he responsible for his own downfall, or was he let down, again and again, by the very system meant to protect him? After nearly 4 decades behind bars, denied the chance to start a family or experience the simple joys of freedom, we have to ask, is this justice? Or is this a punishment too cruel for any human to bear? Is it a life sentence or a slow death? During his time in prison, he married a former girlfriend who supported him and fought not only for his freedom, but for the very humanity he was denied from birth. Sadly, his wife passed away in December 2021 from a COVID-19 infection. Separated from his birth family, and following his father's passing, he is supported by his godmother and her children, who advocate for his freedom to this day. In this era of constantly changing neuroscience, where the psychology of human brain development recently set adulthood at 25, not 18 as it was before, could Robert's case have been overlooked in the new resentencing rule that helped other juveniles who met the old under 18 criteria? See Miller v. Alabama 2012. And since a life sentence without parole is actually a death sentence by incarceration, have we condemned a man to die a slow, painful death because of our own social foolishness? On a bigger scale, Robert's lack of development falls under the long shadow of racial politics that shaped the unfair rules governing our society today. That is, if education, environmental conditions, family dynamics, equal access to social and political opportunities offered to whites, etc., are what is used to measure development, then we should consider that it was once illegal for black people to read or write in this country, who were subjected to lynchings and restrictive black code laws designed to control their labor and movement, which fueled the prisoner leasing system after the Civil War. This was followed by generations of Jim Crow segregation, discriminatory redlining, unethical medical experiments, and more. Each of these injustices created deep generational wounds, cementing a legacy of trauma and mistrust that would echo for centuries. This long and painful history of dehumanization eventually prompted our government, under immense pressure from the civil rights movement, to change the U.S. Constitution to officially recognize black people not only as citizens, but as human beings, including voting rights and civil rights laws, respectively. In fact, the affirmative action steps taken by our government regarding black people were a recognition that black people and other minority groups were so far removed from the socio-political circuit that such measures had to be taken to bring them up to par. Why was this history not considered when evaluating the mental development of young black people in particular? Doesn't this point to a unique situation for this particular racial group? The combined weight of this history inevitably shapes the worldview and psychological state of a young person navigating such a hostile environment. When asked in an interview if anyone had ever been brought to justice for any of the shooting incidents that left his body riddled with bullets, Robert said, quite unbelievably, "No." It was as if he didn't even expect justice, a chilling testament to what he had come to see as normal or acceptable behavior in an environment largely marked by gratuitous and malicious neglect. The system's disregard for his life is clearly shown by the last shooting incident on March 11, 1989. He was literally arrested while medical staff were treating his wounds, preventing doctors from removing the bullets from his body as he was immediately taken into custody. This sudden interruption of medical care explains the hospital gown in his mugshot, the blood dripping from his mouth, and the bullets that remained lodged in his body for years. When we look at Robert's life, chronologically, from the tender age of 10, he was under some form of state care, until his final arrest and subsequent conviction for second-degree murder at 19. His case embodies the school-to-prison pipeline, often talked about in vague or theoretical terms. So again, we ask, did he ever have a chance in life? Have we, as the most advanced society on the planet, which presents itself as the light on the hill and a model for other nations, failed this young man? And if the answer is yes, the logical next question is, what are we going to do about it? It's widely known that if Robert were in most other states, including Massachusetts, Washington, Illinois, or Connecticut, even in most other countries, he would be eligible for parole, given their agreement with the common scientific view that adulthood is not reached until the mid-20s. The Family and Friends Committee for the Freedom of Robert Asafo Williams.